Hey Napo Nighthawks, this is Module 5, Lesson 14. We're going to continue finding common units to compare our fractions. So our objective is I will be able to find common units or number of units to compare two fractions. So we're not using the number line, we're still using our number sense and finding those common denominators to help us compare. So just to kind of get started, we want to make sure we understand that if I have 1/4 and I have 1/5, which one is greater? Okay, so think about when I cut a pie into 4 pieces and then I cut another pie into 5 pieces. Which piece is going to be larger? My larger piece is going to be the 1/4 because I had to cut that same whole into less pieces. So if I cut it into less pieces, my pieces are larger, right? So if I cut a pizza into 4 pieces, or if I cut it into 12 pieces, my pieces that I cut into fourths are going to be much larger, okay? So 1/4 is going to be larger than 1/5. So if we know that 1/4 is larger than 1/5, when we pop over here, then 3/4 is also going to be larger than 3/5 because that 1/4 is larger than the 1/5. So if I have 3 of those fourths, it's still going to be larger than those 3/5. Okay. The same thing with 10ths and 12ths. I cut my pizza into 10 pieces and then I cut this one into 12 pieces. My one that I cut into 10 pieces, those pieces are going to be larger because I didn't have to cut it as many times or break it apart as many times. So 1/10 is larger than 1/12. If I have 7 of those tenths and 7 of those twelfths, my 7/10 is still going to be larger because each piece, each fraction is larger than the twelfths. You guys with me? Okay. So here, we're going to, B is already done for you. So they compared using tape diagrams, which you could always do, or you could use the number line like we did in the last lesson to compare. So 3/5 is blank 3/4. So just like we talked up here, remember 1/4 is larger than 1/5. So if I have 3/4, it's going to be larger than 3/5. I have the same amount, but my fractional unit is different. So 3/5 is less than 3/4. We want to type in here y. So we need to say 1/5 is smaller, or it is less than 1/4. So 3/5 is less than 3/4. That would be our reasoning. If 1/5 is less than 1/4, then 3/5 is less than 3/4. Because fourths is our larger unit. So this one, they have 2/5 is less than 4/9. So they made 4/10 is 2/5 is equal to 4/10. So tenths is less than ninths because tenths are smaller than ninths. So if 2/5 is equal to 4/10, 4/10 is smaller, like my tenths is smaller than ninths. So they used tape diagrams to compare. So they broke this one into 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They have their 4/10 and then they have their 4/9. They use the equivalent fraction of 2/10 is equal to 4/10. So 5 times 2, 2 times 2. Because tenths is a smaller unit than ninths, then those 2/5 is going to be less than 4/9. Okay. All right. So when you guys do this, you guys have the option to just use your reasoning and type your answer, or you guys can draw out the tape diagrams to compare the difference too. So this one, we have the same amount. We have the same amount of fractional amount. So I have 7/11ths and I have 7/13ths. So which one's the larger fractional unit? 11ths or 13ths? Think about if I cut that pizza into 11 pieces and then I cut this pizza into 13 pieces, which one's going to have the larger pieces? It's going to be the 11ths, right? Because we didn't have to cut it as many times. So 1/11th is larger, is greater than 1/13th. So if 1/11th is greater than 1/13th, then that means my 7/11ths is going to be greater than my 7/13ths. Oops, I can find my cursor here. So we're going to want to say the 11ths are larger than the 13ths. So that means that 7/11ths is larger than 7/13ths. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to make common numerators because I see a relationship between the 6 and the 12. So if I take 6/7 and I convert my numerator to 12ths by multiplying by 2, so times 2 times 2, remember whatever I do at the bottom I do to the top. So I'm going to make an equivalent fraction so then I can see the comparison a little bit better. So 6 times 2 gives me 12. 7 times 2 gives me 14. So now I can compare these two a little bit easier. So I have the same fractional pieces. I have 12 of these and I have 12 of these. But now we can think back to 14ths and 15ths. Which one's a larger fractional unit? 14 pieces of the pie or 15 pieces of the pie? Whichever one is the smaller denominator is a larger piece of the whole, right? So if I cut a pie into 2 pieces or I cut it into 6 pieces, my 2 pieces is larger than the 4. Okay, so I know it's kind of hard because it's backwards. We'll always think, well, 15 is larger. It should be larger, not in fractions, because that means we cut the whole into more pieces. So 12/14ths, 12/15ths. So we can say, just like we said over here, 1/14th is larger than 1/15th. So 12/14ths or 6/7, because those are equivalent, is larger than 12/15ths. We're going to want to put that up here on our number line. 6/7 is greater than 12/15ths. All right, let's do one more. 2/3 and 5/6. So you can always try to find a relationship between your numerators or your denominators. 3 and 6, we know that those are related because I can convert my 3 to a 6 using multiplication. So let's do that and see what it gives us. So 2/3 is equal to how many 6? Well, 3 times 2 gives me 6. 3 times 2 gives me 6. 2 times 2 gives me 4. So if 2/3 is equal to 4/6, then we can look at that a little bit easier and say, well, let's think of this as 4/6 and 5/6. Now we just compare our numerators because 5 is larger than 6. 5 is larger than 4. 5/6 would be greater than 2/3. That's another nice way to compare numbers, and that's what we're working towards, not using the number lines and the tape diagrams. We want you guys to be able to notice the relationships between numbers and say, well, 3 and 6, I know those are related because 3 times 2 gives me 6. When you're making equivalent fractions, whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So we multiplied our 3 and 2 times 2, and then we can compare that a little bit easier. Okay, that one was really fast. We'll do one more. Promise. Last one. So same thing, right? So find the relationships in these numbers. 3/4 and 7/8. Can we change our numerator denominator to be the same as one of the others? Yes. 3/4, 4 times what gets me 8, right? 4 and 8, they're related. So 3/4, I'm going to convert this to 8s using multiplication. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. Whatever I do at the bottom, I need to do to the top. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. So now we can compare that a little bit easier. So 3/4 I know is equal to 6/8. So 6/8 and 7/8. 7 is larger than 6. So 7/8 would be greater than 3/4. So 3/4 is less than 7/8 because 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. So we converted it so we can see common denominators. It's kind of like comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges, right? It's easier for us to compare similar numbers, the same numbers, same denominators, than it is different denominators. It just clicks better in our brain. Okay. All right, you guys, great job. This will get easier. If you guys have any questions, please come to office hours and we can work through these lessons together if you want to. All right, great job. We'll see you guys soon.